Returning back to your hometown can always stir up some issues from the past, right? But what if you were blamed for the death of two people in the community that you moved away from, one of whom was your brother? Yeah, it makes things a whole lot more difficult. On the 15th anniversary of the death of Finn and Toby, we saw Kieran, the brother of Finn, return back to Evelyn Bay to visit his family. However, a murder that occurred in the present day was going to be the very thing that caused an unsolved case from that fateful day 15 years ago, the death of Gabby Birches, which brought no body and no closure to finally be solved. With multiple twists and suspects along the way, this season was littered with hints, and it tied into the age-old trope of it's always the person that you least expect it to be. So with that, let's dive into the video and break down the ending to the show. Here is the survivor's ending explained. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. Who killed Bronte and Gabby? This town is full of ghosts, and you can feel it. Everybody's been affected by it, even the survivors. This was a line that was at the heart of the show, and that was most definitely true. The death of Finn and Toby plagued the town. However, there was one other death that occurred on that fateful night that was never solved. This was Gabby Birch, who went missing, and her body was never found, and she was sadly forgotten about amongst the football stars. Bronte, the person that saw that a young girl's death had been swept under the rug and forgotten about, whilst the death of two football stars was getting the limelight, she travelled to Evelyn Bay with the hopes of uncovering it. And it turned out that the investigation that she was doing would sadly bring about her own death, as she ended up being washed up on the beach and found deceased. So after the show went through a large amount of suspects for Bronte's death, we saw that the actual killer was revealed to be Sean, the person that we least suspected. There was a moment where I thought that it would be Brian due to his DNA being found in Bronte's mouth and on her chest. But with the flashback at the start of episode 4 showing him teaching everybody CPR and the technique of pressing to the rhythm of Staying Alive by the Bee Gees, that cleared him in my eyes. Bronte was getting closer to finding out what happened to Gabby 15 years ago, the girl that disappeared that night, which wasn't investigated by the authorities properly. And as she got closer and closer, just by chance, in showing Sean the photo that she found in the cave near where Kieran's brother and friend died trying to rescue him, she saw that Gabby was there on the night that the rescue was supposed to take place. However, she wasn't with Finn and Toby like Sergeant Mallow thought she was. All she did was she put her bag on the boat before heading towards the cave. When she went to the bay, she saw Sean, and he led her to the caves to find Kieran as she wanted to see him. With both Sean and Gabby getting closer, he ended up kissing her, something that she didn't want. With him being embarrassed and feeling as though she'd tell Kieran and Ash, and in not wanting to get made fun of, he left the cave in a rush and didn't lead her out. Which meant that the tide was coming in and she ultimately ended up drowning whilst she was in there, alone, lost, and screaming for help. When Bronte realised that Gabby was in the cave and she took a photo of the engraving that Gabby did, it led Sean to get angry, and he ended up hitting her over the head with a torch and ultimately killed her. Brian was there on that night, and he saw Sean waving the flashlight at him, which is what he recalled, and he then tried to do CPR on her after dragging her out from the water. This is why his DNA was all over her. So it meant that even though everybody else in Evelyn Bay had their own suspicious activity going on, such as George Barlin stalking Bronte and having a thing for younger women, as we saw with his behaviour towards Mia, Ash cheating on Liv actually being in the cave 15 years ago with Kieran and being the person that called Finn and Toby, not Kieran, and facing no repercussions for it. And also Julian knowing what Sean did. None of them had anything to do with Bronte's murder, or Gabby's. So all of those ghosts in the closet were able to lie there still. The ending of the final episode concluded with Trish, the mother of Gabby, finally getting that closure that she deserved. And whilst it wasn't final, it just marked the point of her being able to heal as Gabby's body was found. Sean was also arrested for Bronte's murder, and one would have to imagine that there could be some kind of repercussion on him for the death of Gabby as well. The sad reality of Bronte's death was that it showed that 15 years on, things hadn't changed in Evelyn Bay. Bronte actually got the limelight in the closing part of the final episode, where there was the video recording where she was talking about her future in saying that she couldn't wait to see her mother and father, that she had loads of ideas, and that the project about Gabby was just getting started and that she was excited about what was next. We as the viewer know that there was no next for Bronte, and that she never got to see that she was the person that helped solve the crime that had plagued Evelyn Bay for 15 years. She was just another dead girl that was killed by a nice guy. there was definitely a sadness that was present for sure when the credits rolled. The past haunted Evelyn Bay, and as I mentioned earlier, there were still a ton of ghosts that were in everybody's closets. So I don't think things were going to necessarily change for the better moving forward. There were still terrible people out there, but they hadn't done a crime worthy enough of being arrested. So the cycle might one day continue in Evelyn Bay. My review of the series. When it comes to this show, I feel like it was just okay. I don't think it was anything special, nor do I think it'll be remembered. But there were 6 episodes for this limited series, and I feel this will probably stay as a limited series because I can't see us revisiting Evelyn Bay anytime soon. In terms of how the show was structured, I think it was quite basic. Every episode kind of pointed the finger at somebody different, and it was stereotypical of just making everybody a suspect. For example, it was Brian, it was Marco the boyfriend, it was Ash, it was George, and it was Liv. Everybody was accused other than the person that it actually was, so it made the guessing quite easy by the end, because it followed the most simple of TV formulas with a whodunit like it was the 1950s or something. One thing that I think went against the show slightly were the characters that were within it. Whilst the characters were all performed really well, I just found myself not really liking them, and I found myself not backing any of them at all, which meant that I didn't care if they were arrested or not. Verity was probably my least favourite character. I get that on the day that her son died, a part of her broke and she was never the same again, but my god, she was just so dislikable. The way that she treated Kieran and then also the way that she treated Mia, it was just awful, so I couldn't get on her side in the slightest, even after they reconciled. In terms of what I did like, I thought it was a relatively easy show to follow. The 6-episode structure of around 45 to 50-minute episodes that it had made it so digestible and just easy to breeze through and roll into the next episode. It was a prime example of a show just understanding the story that it needed to tell and not trying to add in fluff and extra details just to get an extra episode or two. I also liked the ending of episode 4 where the song Staying Alive started and finished the episode. The first one was the original by the Bee Gees showing Brian teaching CPR, and the second was a more somber, haunting one where Brian did the hand signal to show that somebody was distressed on the beach that night and that he was there to help. It was a nice use of the same song with 2 completely different sounds to complement the tone and mood. During the finale, I liked the fact that the ending of the story connected all the way back to where it started, with Sean being responsible for both murders. But I also liked the fact that it concluded in the cave where the tragedy happened as well. It allowed it to feel like a full circle moment, and I thought that was a nice touch. There were moments throughout this show where the cave would almost be used as this B-roll between scenes and this ominous music would play. I thought that was a good use of transition because it was this constant reminder of the tragedy that occurred in the cave all of those years ago and that it was still plaguing the bay. And even after the finale, it also acted as a way of showing us that the answer to the question of who killed Bronte and Gabby was going to be found within there. Well, the big question is the show worth watching? Personally, I thought this was an okay watch, but I don't think it's anything special. And like I said before, it's definitely on the more basic side when it comes to plot development. When watching it, I reckon you'll have an easy, enjoyable 6 hours with this one, trying to guess who did it, but if you've watched the video, then I suppose you'll already know. I reckon the best way to describe it is that it's just bang average, so it won't be a waste of time watching it, but it'll probably be a show that you randomly think of one day in the future, because after watching it, I reckon you'll forget about it. So, there you have it, The Survivors ending explained. If you want to see more of your favourite TV series and movies being broken down, then check the playlist below, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss future videos. What did you think of this show? Share your thoughts in the comments. As always, thanks for tuning into the video and I'll see you in the next one.